Hey guys, Spencer Smith, SVP of Consultant Development with Pareto Health, and I'm here with
Kristen Rivers, SVP of the West for Pareto Health.
All right, so Kristen, this time we're in this video, we're going to break down a case study. I think everybody loves real world actual experiences, and we don't sometimes talk about theoretical or what would happen, but we have a real case study that we're going to dig into of some amazing outcomes with a drug. So why don't you walk us through what happened here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to preface it with this group was almost 300 enrolled, fully insured, and they were up against a 35% renewal increase, which is high.
Okay.
Driven predominantly by one hemophiliac claimant. So that's, always the example we use on sometimes a worst case scenario that can happen on a plan. We did some further digging, and that specific claimant was on a drug called Hemlibra. The large claim amount was over $1 million, so it was $1.15 million on the large claims report.
Well, so we bring up hemophilia, you kind of tongue in cheek, it is a condition we see often with a really high price tag. And hemophiliacs, they're on these medications on an ongoing basis. So it's basically a foregone conclusion, right? That will hit the plan every single year.
Absolutely. And this, in talking with the employer in this scenario, this was a key employee or is a key employee. So there was no plans for them to be off the plan at any point. Further digging revealed that patient's dosage had been increased on the Hemlibra, so they would actually go from a $1.15 million claimant up to a $2.3 million claimant if they stayed in their current arrangement.
So doing basic math, they essentially doubled the dose, right, for that individual. And so again, going back to that assumption that they're now an ongoing claimant, and this is a key employee, right, so they're going to be around for a long time, $2.3 million is going to hit the plan every single year, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so a 35% renewal increase for this claimant. Now think about what that would look like on an ongoing basis if that now goes up to 2.3 or potentially higher year over year. Any fully insured carrier will tell you if a group of 280 enrolled that's fully insured, likely a part of a pool, is having this high multi-million-dollar claim each year, they're going to be facing an outlier increase each year. So when we talk about that stair-stepper effect, where you're constantly increasing, this employer would be on a very steep one had they stayed in a fully insured
so
setting.
Maybe even worse than 35% in the future since that dosage had doubled. I think the really interesting thing about this is we often talk about how large claimants drive these renewal increases. In this instance, this one individual was accounting for approximately a third of the plan spend prior to the doubling of the dosage. And so simple math would say they'd be almost 50% of the plan spend in the future. So the rest of the group was running relatively well by comparison.
Yeah, and it kind of begs the question too then, if the group would be running at a 65% loss ratio, aside from this claimant, if this claimant's taken out of the equation, if you're paying for a pooling charge in a fully insured setting, shouldn't that protect you from the large claimants that are hitting on the plan?
Should. Right?
It should.
All right, Kristen, so now let's get into the actual solution because the outcome of this I think was pretty amazing. So what happened?
So we were able to work with SmithRx to source the drug and get it for $850,000 instead of the $2.3 million price tag and really drive down that cost. So this employer ended up going self-funded and joining the captive with a contingent laser of $850,000.
Okay.
And typically that scares an employer to see, when they're coming from fully insured to take on that liability, but they were set up to win because a contingent laser means the reason we put a contingent laser in place is because there is a patient assistance program available for Hemlibra.
Okay.
And what that means is if the member chooses to engage, the cost to the plan, if they qualify for the patient assistance program, the cost to the plan becomes zero. And the cost to the member is also zero.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that means I think about that just in and of itself, going from the $2.3 million price tag where the dosage was now doubled. I assume the dosage is the same for this sourcing of the drug, but even going from 2.3 to 850 grand is $1.4 million, almost $1.5 million in savings. And so you could say on the surface, the group is already winning in that circumstance, and the contingent laser is a really acceptable way to get this group self-funded. But what you're driving at is there's a very high likelihood with that patient assistance program, this member could get zero out of pocket for them, and the plan could also get zero claims as well.
Yep. So you take $2.3 million down to zero. And if the member qualifies and continues to qualify for the patient assistance program, we could potentially remove the laser on renewal as well.
Right. So that's one of those things where when you start to think about, my favorite phrase is you can't manage what you can't measure. So we've now measured this because now you had a chance to see where that drug was coming from, source it in a more cost-efficient manner, and then now we can manage it potentially down to zero if we get this member qualified. And I say we, SmithRx gets the member qualified for patient assistance, and so that's a home run. That's a grand slam of a potential outcome. And then in the future, now what are those groups? Renewal is going to look like as a result of that drop in spend. I mean, it's going to be really significant in terms of the impact in the future as well.
And from a stop loss perspective, even if they took a trend increase, that would maybe be a 1 to 2% increase on their total expenditure versus the 35, 50, 80% increase they could potentially be facing had they stayed in a fully insured setting.
Yeah.
So transparency and data is key to help employers win. And in this case, even though a lot of employers and consultants would react and say, large ongoing risk is this is not the year for me to go self-insured. We need this to subside before we even consider that. This is a scenario where the employer really was set up to win.
That's amazing. And I love case studies like I alluded at up top. It's great to hear actual real world case studies. And this is human beings that are being impacted by this improvement to the plan. So Kristen, thanks for joining me today. And thanks for walking through this awesome case study.
Thank you.
I guess hope you learned something.